Cate Blanchett on her one note when joining Disclaimer, portraying a victim of abuse and how she landed that surprising Squid Game cameo. Cate Blanchett is no stranger to playing complicated, misunderstood women. But in Apple TV+'s Disclaimer, Alfonso Cuarón's 7-part series about a documentarian whose deepest, darkest secrets come to light in a novel written by an unreliable narrator, the 2-time Academy Award winner, and now 3-time Emmy nominee, was tasked with embodying an embattled woman who loses control of her own story. The challenge for me, and I suppose the painful reality, was that when you play a central character in a narrative, you invite an audience not necessarily to have empathy with you, but you invite them into your character's point of view, Blanchett says from her home in London. Disclaimer was the antithesis of that conventional wisdom, forcing Blanchett to sit in others' snap judgments of her character, Catherine Ravenscroft, until she finally reclaims her story in the harrowing finale. I, as an actor and as a character, was put inside a very small box that was slowly having the air squeezed out of it until I finally got to speak, explains Blanchett. Alfonso has impeccable judgment, but there was a conversation at one point where a certain scene wasn't going to be in the final edit. And I said, I think it's really important that the people hear that perspective because we've asked them to sit through Catherine's silence. She has to say why she didn't speak. Otherwise, we are robbing the audience of the full stop. At the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, Cuarón approached Blanchett about collaborating on an adaptation of Renee Knight's 2015 novel, which he had read before making Roma. It would be expanded into 7 episodes, or, as the filmmaker likes to put it, 7 chapters. After signing on as the star and an executive producer, Blanchett became heavily involved in each step of the production. But, much like the audience, the actor found herself being confronted with her own immediate judgments of characters' motivations. Alfonso was really engaged in the fact that there's this war at the moment, and it does feel like a battle, actually, for a singular truth, which I think is a really dangerous and rather pointless exercise because truth is such a complex thing, Blanchett says. We all know it's made up of so many different perspectives, and the ones that we lean into are often the most predigested, pre-masticated ones that are really easy to swallow and somehow make us feel like we're good people and the guardians of all knowledge and morality. We don't like those truths that make us feel uncomfortable about ourselves. Disclaimer specifically forces viewers to confront their own biases and the cultural vilification of so-called bad women. I think if you go back and watch it a second time, there's a crude picture of Catherine that the people were assembling for themselves that didn't have a lot to do with who she was or what she did, or the impact that she was having in the room, says Blanchett. The truth was hiding in plain sight. For the first 6 episodes, viewers were led to believe that Catherine, while vacationing in Italy years earlier, had initiated a self-absorbed affair with a 19-year-old stranger named Jonathan, Lewis Partridge, who ultimately died after saving Catherine's young son from drowning in the ocean. In the finale, Catherine finally confronts Jonathan's father, Stephen Kevin Kline, whose late wife, Nancy Leslie Manville, had written the novel based on a false perception of her son's final days. But what really happened was that the night before his death, Jonathan had broken into Catherine's hotel room, forced her to pose for nude photographs, and then violently sexually assaulted her. I think to know that you are moving through and unpicking an audience's often intractable judgments of what had gone on was a profound relief, says Blanchett, who recalls feeling markedly lighter after shooting that extended, 40-page monologue all in one take. The devastating final twist was a secret that Blanchett fought to keep, even if it made press next to impossible. There are many tangential conversations I would have loved to have had about what happens when you sit with abuse, and the various different ways that people bury this trauma, she says. The courage that it takes still in this day and age to stand up and say it, even after you've been sitting on that shame, and the attendant shame that comes for people who are victims of abuse. I feel like it would have been great to use the series in a way as a launch pad to talk about that stuff. You can't make that stuff happen, but I've had quite a few people stop me in the proverbial supermarket to talk about that.